You are the most beautiful woman in the world, Clinton whispered, his voice full of awe as he held Amara's hands. Her skin was smooth and dark, glowing under the dim light of the room. She was stunning, her body perfectly sculpted, her eyes a bright honey brown that sparkled with warmth, and her smile, with those deep dimples, could light up an entire room. Every time she smiled at him, it was as if everyone else vanished, leaving only the two of them. "Stop teasing me," Amara responded, her voice lightened with a playful tone, though the way she squeezed his hand betrayed a deeper affection. Her heart fluttered in her chest as she looked up at him, her eyes filled with love. "I love you, Clinton." He smiled down at her, his heart swelling with affection. "I love you too," he said, his voice soft and sincere. Then, his expression became serious, almost as if he was trying to commit every detail of her face to memory. "But will you still love me when I'm old and grey?" she asked. "Of course I will," Clinton replied without hesitation. His hand reached up to brush a loose strand of hair away from her eyes, his fingers lingering on her soft skin. "How could I not?" He leaned in, closing the distance between them, and pressed a gentle kiss to her plump lips. The kiss was tender and full of promise, as if it were sealing a vow they had just made to each other. Clinton had met Amara on his first night out in London, just a few weeks ago. As an American citizen with a Nigerian mother and an American father, he had decided to visit London to explore his mother's roots. He had expected the city to be full of surprises, but nothing could have prepared him for meeting Amara. That night, he had wandered into a dimly lit bar, the kind of place where the shadows seemed to dance with the rhythm of the slow jazz playing in the background. The bar was filled with people, but despite the crowd, his eyes had immediately been drawn to her, a striking, beautiful woman sitting alone at a small table. Men seemed to orbit around her, drawn in by her beauty, but she remained aloof, her eyes distant, her interest clearly somewhere else. Clinton had watched for a moment, noticing how she politely turned away each suitor who approached her. He could see the frustration on the faces of those who tried and failed to capture her attention. It was almost as if she was waiting for something or someone. Feeling an inexplicable pull towards her, Clinton had made his way over to her table. He hadn't planned what he was going to say, but as he got closer, the words just seemed to come out naturally. "Is this seat taken?" he had asked, his voice confident yet respectful. Amara had looked up at him, her eyes meeting his for the first time. For a moment, he thought he saw something flicker in her gaze. Curiosity, perhaps, or recognition. She smiled, a small knowing smile that seemed to hold a secret just for him. "No, it's not," she had replied, her voice smooth as silk. She gestured to the empty seat across from her, and with that simple invitation, Clinton felt like he had just been given the chance of a lifetime. As they talked that night, he found himself drawn deeper and deeper into her world. She was charming and intelligent, with a quick wit that kept him on his toes. There was an air of mystery about her, something that made him want to learn everything there was to know about her. By the end of the night, they were inseparable. Clinton had walked her home, his hands never leaving hers, and before they knew it, they were a couple. Now, weeks later, as they sat together in a cozy London apartment, he couldn't imagine his life without her. The connection they shared was intense, almost otherworldly, and the way she looked at him made him feel like he was the only man in the world. But even in those moments of bliss, there was a small nagging feeling in the back of Clinton's mind. There was something about Amara that he couldn't quite put his finger on, something that made her seem almost too perfect, too unreal. One evening, as they sat together on the couch, Clinton brought it up, unable to keep the thought to himself any longer. "Amara," he began, his voice cautious, "can I ask you something?" She looked at him, her eyes soft and inviting. Of course, Clinton, you can ask me anything. He hesitated for a minute, unsure of how to phrase his question. You are so young, so beautiful. Sometimes I can't help but wonder, how do you do it? You seem almost ageless. Amara's smile faltered for just a second, but it was enough for Clinton to notice. She quickly recovered her smile, returning with full force, but there was something in her eyes, something that hadn't been there before. Clinton, she said softly, beauty is fleeting, isn't it? But what we have, that's something that goes beyond looks, beyond time, don't you think? He nodded, her words suiting his concerns, but a part of him still couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to her than she was letting on. Later that night, after Clinton had drifted off to sleep, Amara lay awake beside him, her mind racing. She had heard his question, and though she had brushed it off, she knew that it was only a matter of time before he began to suspect the truth. She sighed, her gaze drifting to the mirror on the wall across from the bed. As she looked at her reflection, her beautiful face stared back at her, flawless and youthful. But Amara knew that this face, this body wasn't truly hers. It was a skin she wore, a mask to hide her true self. Every night, when the world slept and the darkness of the night swallowed the city, Amara would quietly rise from Clinton's side. She would step in front of her mirror, watching her youthful reflection, knowing it was nothing but a facade. With a deep breath, she would close her eyes, feeling the familiar every sensation as her youthful skin began to peel away, like the layers of an onion, revealing the ancient weathered face beneath. Her bones creaked, and her body shivered into the frail form of an old woman who had seen centuries pass by. She had lived countless lifetimes, always using her ageless beauty to lure men like Clinton. Men who would become hopelessly enchanted by her. Men who would never know the truth until it was too late. The curse kept her alive, kept her young, but it also kept her bound to the life of deceit. In the village of Agbe, far away from the glitz of London, in a remote village, lived an old woman known to everyone simply as Amara Afigbe. Her hut was tattered and barely held together by the straw that formed its roof. The villagers pitied her, for she had once been a vibrant woman full of life. But tragedy had struck her many times over. Her 16 children had all been taken away by various misfortunes, illnesses, accidents, even mysterious disappearance. She had outlived them all, her sorrow weighing heavily on her stooped shoulders. The villagers would often pass by her hut, whispering prayers for her as they went. May her next life be beautiful, they would say, believing that someone who had suffered so much in this life would surely be blessed in the next. But what they didn't know was that Amara was not just the old, toothless widow they pitied. When night fell and the world around her grew quiet, she would leave her decrepit hut behind, transforming into the beautiful, enchanting woman who had captured the heart of a man thousands of miles away. One evening, as Amara laid in Clinton's arms, her head resting on his chest, she looked up at him with those mesmerizing honey brown eyes. Clinton, she began softly, her voice almost a whisper. I need to return home for a while. There are some family events I must attend to, and it will take a few months before I can come back to you. Clinton's heart sank at the thought of being without her. He tightened his arms around her, trying to hold on to the moment. 6 months? He asked, a hint of desperation in his voice. That's a long time, Amara. I'll miss you terribly. I'll miss you too, she said, her voice thick with emotion. But it's something I must do. Yeah, she added, reaching into her purse and pulling out a small piece of paper. This is my address in Nigeria. If you miss me too much, you can come and visit me. He took the paper, his fingers brushing against hers, and nodded. I will. I'll come to see you if it gets too hard. She smiled, leaning up to kiss him. I'll be waiting. Months passed, and Clinton found himself increasingly restless. He tried calling, emailing, even writing letters, but there was no response from Amara. His longing for her grew unbearable. He missed her smile, her laugh, the way she made him feel like the only man in the world. Finally, unable to stand the separation any longer, he decided to go to Nigeria to see her. Upon arriving at the airport in Lagos, he immediately set out to find the village of Agbe. It was a long journey, taking him through bustling cities, quiet towns, and finally into the heart of the Nigerian countryside. The village was remote, nestled among rolling hills and surrounded by dense forests. Clinton began asking around, showing people the picture of Amara he had carried with him. Do you know this woman? He asked each person he met. The villagers would look at the picture. Then at Clinton, confusion evident on their faces. We know the name you speak of, one man finally said. But this face, it is not the Amara we know. Amara Afikbe is an old woman, another chimed in. She lives alone with no children. She's very old, very poor. Clinton's heart pounded in his chest, a sense of dread washing over him. Please, he pleaded. Take me to her. They led him through the narrow, winding paths of the village until they reached a small, dilapidated hut at the edge of the settlement. The roof was sagging and the walls were covered in moss. As they approached, an old woman emerged from the shadows. She was hunched over, her face deeply lined with age, her hair a tangled mess of grey. She had a hoe in one hand, dirt caked under her fingernails from working in the fields. Clinton stared at her, his mouth dry, his mind refusing to process what he was saying. The old woman's eyes locked onto his, and a slow smile spread across her face, revealing a single yellowed tooth. Clinton, she said in a voice that sent shivers down his spine. What a surprise to see you here. Do you know him? One of the villagers asked, astonished. Yes, the old woman replied, her voice carrying a strange mix of pride and affection. He is my boyfriend. Clinton felt the word tilt around him. He shook his head, refusing to believe it. No, this can't be. The picture, this is not you. The old woman chuckled, the sound more like a dry raps. But it is, Clinton. This is who I am during the day. When night falls here and day begins in your world, I transform into the woman you know. Clinton stumbled back, his mind reeling. How do you travel between here and here? He asked, barely able to get the words out. The old woman, Amara, moved with surprising speed, rushing over to the corner of the hut. She returned, holding a palm fruit, the leaves worn and brittle. With this, she said, waving it in the air like it was some kind of magic wand. Clinton stared at the palm frond, his heart filled with sorrow and disbelief. What sort of black magic is this? He whispered, tears welling up in his eyes. The woman he loved, the woman he had planned to spend his life with, was nothing more than a lie, a cruel trick played by some ancient force he couldn't understand. Amara's smile faded as she saw the disgust in his eyes. I only did what I had to do, she said gently. It was the only way to survive. The children were useless to me, she said. What children? Clinton and the crowd that was beginning to form asked. Amara's thoughts drifted back to her 16 children, the ones she had used to extend her life. Each of them had been born with a special purpose, to fuel the dark magic that kept her young and beautiful. The first child, a girl, had been the easiest. Amara remembered the night she had drained the life force from her, feeling the warmth and vitality flow into her own body. The other children followed, one by one, each serving their purpose until they were no longer needed. Eldest daughter Amina had been the hardest to go. Amina had grown into a beautiful young woman, so full of life and promise. But the course demanded sacrifice, and Amara could not resist its pull. The night Amara took Amina's life, she felt a twinge of regret, but it was brief, overshadowed by the rush of power that came with absolving her daughter's life force. Amara's skin glowed with youth once more, but the cracks in her soul deepened. Obina, her youngest son, had been different. He was strong-willed with a spirit that resisted every attempt to drain him. In the end, the ritual had nearly destroyed her, leaving her with a fractured youth that could no longer be sustained. Clinton stared at the old woman before him, struggling to reconcile the truth with the image of the woman he had fallen in love with. You used your own children for this? Amara looked down, her hands trembling slightly. I did what I had to do, Clinton. You wouldn't understand. I don't want to understand, Clinton said, his voice cold. This is evil. Without another word, Clinton turned and walked away, leaving Amara alone in a dilapidated hut. The villagers watched him go, whispering among themselves. No one stopped him. They all knew what Amara had done was evil, and they wanted nothing more to do with her. Amara stood in the doorway of her hut, watching Clinton disappear into the distance. She was truly alone now. Her beauty gone, her children sacrificed, and the man she had loved lost to her forever. The curse had finally caught up to her, and there was nothing left but the consequences of her choices. As night fell over the village of Agbe, Amara retreated into her hut, the weight of her long cursed life pressing down on her. She had lived many lifetimes, but now, at the end of it all, she had nothing, only the darkness remained. Hey besties! Thank you for watching this video. I really appreciate your support. I don't take it for granted. If you're not subscribed, what are you waiting for? Please subscribe already. On this channel, I currently have a membership program going on, and it's just for a little fee. You get exclusive perks that not just anybody gets. You get to tell me the kind of stories, titles, topics you want to see, and I take them as priority. You also get to be the first person to see my new uploads before any other person, and sneak peeks of my behind the scenes projects. So anytime you're waiting for a new video and I haven't uploaded, just check out my other videos. I'm sure you'll find something you like. And as always, I'll see you in my next video. Bye besties! Mwah.